1999 Kentucky Valley Regional High School Graduation Speech by P.J. O'Rourke. Read by R.W. Bell. It is an ancient and honorable tradition of all high school commencement speakers to try to bore the graduating seniors to death. You see, high school graduation is pretty much the last chance that the adult world has to make you really fidget and squirm with true behind-numbing tedium. After all, once you've graduated from high school, you're part of the adult world, which means that you have to bore yourself to death from now on. Anyway, we adults like to make the most of this occasion, so I tried to come up with the most boring possible thing to do this morning. I thought about a 12-step program to help all of you recovering high school students, and I thought about some grief counseling to help you cope with your loss of study halls and cafeteria food. Or, I know what would be really boring. How about the notorious passing wisdom down from one generation to another? Except there's a little problem with that. I come from the 1960s generation, and we don't have any wisdom. I'm from the moron generation. We're the generation that believed we could stop the war in Vietnam by growing our hair long and dressing like circus clowns. We believed drugs would change everything, and drugs did change everything for a lot of us because we overdosed and died. We believed in free love, and the love was free, but the sex turned out to be very costly. True, my generation did have some good musicians, but those musicians are still out there touring. Never mind that they've got the grandchildren along, and because Bruce Springsteen and the Rolling Stones and Jimmy Buffett are still out there, when you start a band, you won't stand a chance of making any money. My generation spoiled everything for future generations. For instance, it's always been the special privilege of youth to look and act weird and shock the grown-ups. My generation used up all the weird. Weird shoes, we wore them. Weird beards, we grew them. Weird words and phrases, we said them. So when it was your turn to look and act weird, there was nothing left for you to do except pierce your tongues. Ouch. I'm sorry. That must really hurt. So let's skip the business of passing wisdom down from one generation to another and go to the next ancient and honorable tradition of high school commencement speakers, where I give you a bunch of good advice. Now, I have no idea why you would want to listen to advice from me. You're all younger and fitter than I am. You've graduated from this high school, which is a big improvement on the high school I went to, so you're smarter than I am. And you didn't get kicked out of school, so you're sneakier than I am. True, I am more experienced than you are, being 3 times your age. But all that means is that I've done and said 3 times as many stupid things as you have. And there's another difficulty with my giving you good advice. I don't think I know any good advice. Well, never pull a t-shirt over your head when you've got a lit cigar in your mouth. If you ever do any public speaking, right before you get up on stage, check your fly. And one more thing. Lose the tongue stud. I don't mean to be culturally insensitive here. I mean, if tongue studs are part of your cultural heritage, that is, if you come from a place where everyone pierces his or her tongue, Seattle for instance, then by all means go ahead. But assuming that most of you are regular New Englanders of one kind or another, lose the mouth jewels. I say this because you may discover the cure for cancer, or invent a cheap, renewable, non-polluting form of energy, or find life on another planet. But it won't matter. All anybody will ever say about you is, ew. She's got this thing right through the middle of her tongue. That's all the good advice I know. And anyway, I got to thinking. What kind of advice would I have listened to when I was 18? The answer was none. At 18, you really get your fill of good advice. It's dished out at home, school, and part-time jobs. Parents serve up extra portions. Good advice becomes like candy 2 days after Halloween. If you get any more right now, you may barf all over the ceremony. So I can't figure out how to bore you. My generation is wisdom-free. I don't have any good advice, and you wouldn't listen to me if I did. Therefore, I decided to break with all the traditions of commencement speeches and give you some bad advice. At least there's a chance you'll listen to that. First, get out of town. This is bad advice because the Monadnock region is a great place. It's heaven on earth. But you're probably too busy being bored with Peterborough to notice that right now. So get out of here. Go to some terrible place like New York, meet awful people like Madonna and Donald Trump, and have dreadful experiences. Otherwise, you'll never know that this is heaven on earth. You'll just think it's a boring little town. Second, move back here. That's bad advice too, because you can make more money and become more successful or famous or whatever in New York. But we need you back here. We don't have any Madonnas or Donald Trumps. Peterborough may be heaven on earth, but it's also, to tell the truth, a boring little town. Forget everything you learned in high school. I'll bet you've done this already. Math, for instance. Heck with it. You can live to be 100 and never once be confronted with a life or death situation that depends on figuring out if a train A leaves Cincinnati at 3 p.m. going 40 miles per hour, and train B leaves St. Louis at 4 p.m., and train C leaves Chicago. Have you checked Amtrak lately? There aren't that many trains in the whole United States. So go ahead and forget everything. Besides, school isn't really about learning facts and figures. School is about learning how to learn. An uneducated person is not a person who doesn't go to college, or even a person who dropped out of high school. An uneducated person is a person who thinks his or her education is ever finished. People like that just sit in front of the television and turn into flesh-colored furniture. If you do go on to college, get a lousy education. What I mean is take all sorts of useless courses like art and literature and philosophy, and don't keep asking yourself, how am I going to get a job in philosophy? I looked through the entire Boston Globe classified section and didn't see a single job opening for philosopher. Education isn't vocational training. The real purpose of education is to expose you to what a whole bunch of dead smart people have been thinking about for the past several thousand years, to broaden your outlook and to make you a civilized person. This education is lousy from a practical point of view. It won't teach you how to get a job. It won't even teach you how to get a welfare check. So what's in it for me, you ask? And the answer is nothing. You personally won't get a thing out of becoming a civilized person. It's the rest of us who benefit from you being civilized. The nation, society, the world in general, and especially your parents. They'd like to be able to talk to you about something besides Marilyn Manson. Some more bad advice? Be a fool. Goof off. Act irresponsibly. Look like a lunatic. Go ahead and put that tongue stud back in. Use up all your intellect and energy playing video games, and by all means, have an attitude, as obnoxious as you please. I know this sounds terrible to the parents in the audience, but I'd like to remind the parents that there's something worse than young people acting up, and that's when middle-aged people do it. It's very important that adolescents get adolescence out of their systems while they're still in their teens. You see, you graduates, sociologically speaking, you're sort of puppies right now. And you know, when a puppy chews up the slippers and gnaws on a chair and so forth, well, it's cute. But what if you had a great big adult dog that whined all night and ate your shoes and messed on the floor? You'd have to put it down. So, when it comes to being young, get over it, now. We don't want a bunch of 50-year-olds hanging out in Peterborough Plaza, riding skateboards, listening to rap, and wearing pants that are a month wide. Run away from your problems. People are always telling you you can't run away from your problems. 9 times out of 10, they're wrong. I mean, if you have a drinking problem, run like a bandit. Get away from alcohol. Don't drink. If you have a problem with your family, try leaving home and striking out on your own. If you're physically out of shape, running will help, literally. More people get into trouble by staying with bad things than by running away from them. And one good thing about being young, and as yet unburdened by most of life's responsibilities, you can run a lot faster and a lot further than you'll be able to later on. Go out and fail. Ask the average high school graduate what his or her ambition is, and you'll hear the answer. To be successful at whatever I choose to do. That's wrong. What if the first thing you choose to do is fry chicken McNuggets? And what if you're so successful at it that McDonald's will never promote you because nobody can fry those nuggets the way you do? You could be so successful that you get to fry chicken McNuggets for the rest of your life. Real success, and by that I don't mean just money, but the ability to do something that matters, whether it's raising kids, running Microsoft, or having a hit recording produced by Puff Daddy. Real success is a product of failure. Real success comes to people who are brave enough to try all sorts of things, some of which, in fact, most of which, they're going to fail at doing. It's like snowboarding. If you board all day with no wipeouts, you aren't pushing the envelope. If you do everything perfectly and succeed at everything you try, you'll wind up as boring as Al Gore. You might even become President of the United States. A job nobody in his right mind wants. P.S. We local adults would, however, appreciate it if you grads would have all of those failures while you're still living in New York. Before you come back here. There are enough of us failures in Peterborough already. Lower your self-esteem. I know that's not what you've been told. Raising self-esteem is practically the main required course in high school these days. You're supposed to have a great self-image, a wonderful opinion of you, be head over heels in love with your own face. But why? What's the use of feeling good about yourself? What are you going to do? Give yourself a raise? Bring yourself candy and flowers? Try feeling good about somebody else? It's got more fun potential. Or try getting other people to feel good about you because of all the things you do and the way you act. Quit trying to make the world a better place. When you try to make the world a better place, you're assuming that you know what the world needs, that you know what the world should be doing, that you know what everybody in the world wants. No offense, but you're only 18. You don't even know what you want. Maybe, when it comes to making the world a better place, you should, for the time being, start with that small part of the world which begins at the tip of your nose and ends at the back of your head. Maybe, rather than tell the world what to do, you could learn to do something that the world wants done. Quit caring so much. This is the other required course in high school, where it's drilled into you to care about the environment, care about endangered species, care about social justice. Well, be careful with all that caring. There's no reason to have a high opinion of yourself just because you're a worrywart. And there's an unattractive side to caring. It can be a way of making yourself a member of the self-appointed elite. You care about the environment. You really, really care. You care so much you can't eat, you can't sleep. It's ruined your interpersonal relationships. While the rest of us, we just give $20 to the Sierra Club and forget about it. You care more than we do. That shows that you're better than we are. And since you're a superior person, you obviously have the right to tell us inferior people what to do. We inferior people may not buy that. The truth is that your feelings and opinions don't matter very much. You can care about your animal friends more than you care about anything in the world, and you still won't be able to save the life of a single black fly or gypsy moth by means of your emotions. And going to protests and picketing your college administration building, that isn't going to accomplish anything either. All you're doing is advocating that other people take action. To loudly demand that somebody else become a good person does not make a good person out of you. And telling the government to do something doesn't make you good either. Those aren't your tax dollars that will be spent. They're your parents' tax dollars. There's no merit in being charitable with other people's money. Am I encouraging apathy? No. My advice isn't that bad. I'm just encouraging substance. The kind of caring that we need more of often isn't very hip. It's much cooler to care about something that's distant and exotic than it is to care about something in your own home. If you're treating the rainforest better than you're treating your mother, that's probably not a good sign. And my last piece of bad advice is that money can buy happiness. Well, money can't actually buy happiness, but it sure can rent it. Here we live in the most prosperous country in the world in the most prosperous time in history, and we're all ashamed to admit we like money. We're surrounded by comforts and conveniences that money can buy, and we feel compelled to insult and belittle the source of them. There's nothing wrong with honest money making. Wealth is not some sort of pizza where if I have too many slices, you have to eat the Domino's box. Prosperity is expandable. Very few of the good things in life are finite and limited. Dates with Britney Spears or the Backstreet Boys, maybe. There's a limited amount of those, and probably just as well. But more food, clothing, and shelter can be made. However, it's not the government that makes them, and it's not charities. It's the people who farm, sow, and build, the people who make money. And money is, for most people, the only real path to freedom. With money comes power over the world. Men and women are freed from drudgery and exploitation. Businesses are started, communities are formed, religions practiced, education pursued. And let me give you one more reason to make money. Say you become the worst kind of Wall Street slimeball, making $1 million a year just playing the stock market and not doing anything productive. Even if you cheat on your taxes, you're going to wind up paying $250,000 a year to the public coffers. And say that you do that for 20 years before you're put in jail. That's $5 million. $5 million worth of paved roads and sewage treatment plants, public education, benefits for the disabled, military protection for the rest of your countrymen. Now let's say you don't become a Wall Street slimeball, and instead go off and spend the next 20 years protesting against the timber industry in California. Are you going to do $5 million worth of good for mankind chained to a sequoia? For $5 million, you could have bought the whole forest. So go out and make some money. And just one more thing before you leave. Don't listen to too much advice, okay? Good or bad. Especially don't listen to too much free advice. If the person standing up here giving you free advice really knew anything, he'd make you pay for it, wouldn't he?